Do you know what a roundhouse is? Well, a roundhouse is to railroad engines what a big garage is to automobiles. It's the place the engines live when they're not working. Once upon a time, there was a roundhouse in a railroad yard. All sorts of engines lived in this roundhouse. Big old steam engines, sleek new diesel engines, streamlined passenger train engines, huge bulky freight train engines, rusty, dusty old engines, and one tiny blue switching engine with a tall smokestack. One busy day in the railroad yards, a train full of toys pulled in. It was drawn by a small steam engine, and just as the train arrived in the railroad yard, 4 of the engine's wheels fell off. The engineer on this train full of toys was a clown with a tall, pointed white hat and a big red nose and a very wide smile which was painted on his face. When the wheels fell off his engine, he began to cry bitterly. Big tears rolled down his cheeks and washed away his smile, and this was a very sad thing to see. "Oh, I must get this trainload of toys over the big mountain to the city on the other side. There are hundreds of children waiting for these toys. They will be so disappointed." After a while, the tears stopped falling. Crying won't get these toys to the other side of the mountain," the clown said to himself. "Maybe I can find someone to help me." Just then, a sleek diesel engine came up to the roundhouse. "Please, Mr. Diesel Engine, sir, will you pull this trainload of toys over the mountain?" But the sleek diesel engine snorted. "I wouldn't think of pulling a beat-up train of toys like yours. I am a passenger engine. I have just finished pulling a long train of passenger cars clear across the country. My train had sleeping cars with upper and lower berths, a dining car where people were served wonderful meals, Vista Dome cars where people could sit on the second floor and look at the scenery through big windows, some baggage cars, and an observation car. I wouldn't be seen pulling a trainload of children's toys." This upset the clown engineer so much that he began crying again, and he had a difficult time stopping. Just then, an enormous freight engine came into the yard, puffing and blowing. Getting his courage up, the clown asked, "Please, Mr. Freight Engine, will you pull my train over the mountain?" The big freight engine had an enormous whistle, and he blew it derisively. "Huh! I have pulled hundreds of oil tank cars, lumber cars, double-decked automobile carrying cars, refrigerated cars, and very important machinery cars. I would certainly look very silly pulling your dinky little trainload of toys. I wouldn't think of it." And with a great blast of steam, the big freight engine roared off down the track. The clown puckered up, and it looked as if he was going to cry again, but he had run out of tears, and so he didn't. Instead, he walked into the roundhouse, and there, sitting over in a dark corner, was a rusty, dusty old engine. The clown took heart. Maybe this rusty, dusty old engine would pull his train over the mountain. But when he asked, the tired old engine replied in a whining voice, "Oh, I can't possibly. I'm not well, you know. I have spots in front of my headlights, and my whistle's broken. Listen. 3 of my wheels are flat, and I know I could never make it over the mountain." Just then, into the roundhouse came the little blue switch engine. The clown tried once again. "Little blue switch engine, will you pull my train over the mountain?" The little blue switch engine replied, "I am a very small engine, as you can see, and I have never been out of the railroad yard." The clown said, "It would be an adventure, and you would make the boys and girls on the other side of the mountain very happy if you would pull my train over there." "I'd like to do that," said the little blue engine, "but I don't know whether I am strong enough." "I think you could do it," said the clown. "Will you try?" Yes, said the little blue switch engine. I'd like to try. I think I can, I hope. So the little blue switch engine hitched herself to the trainload of toys, and the clown engineer climbed on board, and they started out of the railroad yard. The going was easy as long as they were on the flat land, but when they started up the hill, it got rougher and tougher and rougher. The little blue switch engine began to chug and puff and chug, and the train went slower and slower and slower. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I hope. Just then, they came to a rickety-stickety bridge over a deep canyon. It doesn't look safe to me, said the little blue switch engine. I'm sure it's all right, said the clown. Let's try. So, carefully, warily, the little blue switch engine pulled the train of toys out onto the rickety bridge. When they were halfway across, it began to sway and splinter. The little engine put on a burst of speed, and just as the train got across the canyon, the rickety-stickety bridge collapsed into splinters and firewood. The little blue switch engine gulped. That was a close one, she said, and she started up the big hill again. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I hope. Pretty soon, they came to a big, dark tunnel. The little engine stopped. I'm afraid to go in there. That tunnel's full of smoke. There may be another train in there, and we will have a wreck. No, said the clown. The signal's green. It's safe to go ahead. So, gingerly, the little blue switch engine pulled the train of toys into the dark and smoky tunnel. Slowly and more slowly she went, coughing and choking and sputtering with the smoke. Finally, she stopped. I am lost in this darkness, she said. Oh, you couldn't be lost, said the clown engineer. There is only one way to go, and that's ahead. So, the little blue switch engine started up again. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can, I hope. The little blue switch engine and the clown engineer were very happy to see the daylight when they got out of the long, dark tunnel. Up ahead, they could see the top of the hill. They were almost there. Suddenly, from the trees along the railroad track, out stepped a big brown bear, and he stopped right in the middle of the track and looked fiercely at the little blue switch engine and the clown engineer. Please step aside, Mr. Bear, said the clown. We have to get this train of toys to the children on the other side of the mountain. The bear growled menacingly. And the little blue switch engine was so frightened that she began backing down the hill. Stop, said the clown. I have an idea. Go up to the bear again. So the little blue switch engine did. Out of one of the cars of the train full of toys, the clown pulled a giant-sized all-week sucker. I'll give you this beautiful all-week sucker if you will let the train pass, said the clown. This made the bear very happy, and he took the lollipop and stood aside. Hooray, said the little blue switch engine. I think I can. I know I can. I know I can. In a very few minutes, the little blue switch engine and its train full of toys was at the top of the mountain. Down in the valley lay the city. From this height, the buildings and houses looked like toys. Hooray! Hooray! Cried the little blue switch engine. And this is the song the clown engineer and the little blue switch engine sang together. This train went over the mountain. This train went over the mountain. This train went over the mountain. And look what we can see. The other side of the mountain. The town at the foot of the mountain. The town at the foot of the mountain is what we all can see. So down the other side of the mountain went the little blue switch engine and its trainload of toys. Faster and faster and faster. I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could. As the train pulled into the station in the city, the little blue switch engine tooted its whistle with joy and said, I did, I did, I did. All the children from the city were at the railroad station to meet the little blue switch engine and the clown engineer and the train full of toys. They all gave a great cheer as the clown started passing out the toys to all the happy children.
was a little engine with a great big will. She stood right at the bottom of a great big hill. She had a train behind her, of toys it was full, which over the big mountain she must pull, pull, pull. I hope I can, I hope I can, I hope I can, I hope. I hope I can, I hope I can, I hope I can, I hope. She tugged and tugged and tugged, her wheels she must unfreeze. Then she started very slowly with a great big wheeze. She pulled her whistle cord and gave a little toot. The smoke from her smokestack was black and full of soot. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think. She struggled up the mountain, she thought her seams would pop. She puffed and chugged and puffed and chugged until she reached the top. She laughed a happy laugh as she hit the other side, as faster and faster down the tracks were slippery as a slide. I thought I could, 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 I thought. There was a little engine with a great big will, which helped her win a battle with a great big hill. She had her train behind her loaded full of toys for more than 200 happy girls and boys. I knew I could, 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 I knew.
Come all you rounders if you want to hear the story about a brave engineer. Casey Jones was the rounder's name. On a 6-8-wheeler, boys, he won his fame. The caller called Casey at 4:30, kissed his wife at the station door, mounted to the cabin with his orders in his hand, and he took his farewell trip to the promised land. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin, Casey Jones with his orders in his hand. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin, and he took his farewell trip to the promised land. John Henry was a little baby sitting on his mammy's knee. Said the Big Bend Tunnel on the C&O Road gonna be the death of me, Lord, Lord, gonna be the death of me. John Henry was a little baby sitting on his daddy's knee. He pointed his finger at a little piece of steel. That's gonna be the death of me, Lord, Lord, that's gonna be the death of me. The captain says to John Henry, gonna bring me a steam drill round. Gonna take that steam drill out on the job. I'm gonna whop that steel on down, Lord, Lord. Gonna whop that steel on down. John Henry told his captain, he said, a man ain't nothing but a man. And before I'd let that steam drill beat me down, I'd die with this hammer in my hand, Lord, Lord, I'd die with this hammer in my hand. The sun were hot and burning, there weren't no breeze at all. The sweat ran down like water down a hill. That day John let his hammer fall, Lord, Lord, that day John let his hammer fall. John Henry was hammering on the mountain, and his hammer was striking fire. He drove so hard till he broke his poor heart, and he laid down his hammer and he died, Lord, Lord, he laid down his hammer and he died. They took John Henry to the graveyard, and they buried him in the sand. And every locomotive come a-roaring by says, there lies a steel-driving man, Lord, Lord, says there lies a steel-driving man. John Henry, John Henry, John Henry, John Henry.
This story is about a streetcar. We don't see many streetcars anymore, but years ago when this story took place, every city and most towns had electric cars on tracks running right down the middle of their main streets. They called the driver of a streetcar a motorman, and he stood up in the front and drove with a funny little detachable handle and clanged the bell. The conductor stood in the rear and took the passengers' money in a glass fare box. When the streetcar came to the end of the line, the motorman would take his little driving handle and walk to the rear end, which could become the front end of the car, and put it into an electric box there. And the conductor would take his fare box to the front end, which could become the rear end, and take up his stand. Each end of the streetcar was open, but the middle section was glassed in like a fishbowl for people. Our story is about an all-night streetcar. McCroy was its motorman, and he would always clang his bell loudly as he went down Main Street at 3 o'clock in the morning. Firstly, it stopped the extreme silence of the empty, lonesome city from being so silent. Secondly, it started some noise being noisy. But most importantly, it made McCroy feel better. But on moonlit 3 o'clocks, it would be necessary for the conductor to leave his fare box at the rear end, which could be the front end of the little car, and come to the front end, which could be the rear end, and clang the bell for the motorman. The night of our story, the city was lonesomer, and the moonlight was brighter than ever. Moonlight is magical, McCroy said thoughtfully.
Bosh!
Said the conductor. McCroy pushed his driving handle over to full speed ahead. The little car swayed back and forth and up and down with a motion that the conductor described as definitely nautical as he sucked on a lemon drop. Suddenly, an aghast look appeared on McCroy's face, and without a word, he collapsed into a neat little heap on the floor. The conductor knew what to do in such an emergency. He must stop the car and administer first aid to the motorman. This he promptly did, and soon the motorman came to where he'd been before.
Motorman, how do you feel now? What caused your collapse?
Conductor, in all the time I've been motorman of this all-night streetcar, I've never seen one.
One what?
One passenger.
It's unheard of, but our duty is clear. We must stop for him.
Well, I guess so, said McCroy, none too enthusiastically, as he returned to his motorman's stool. Soon the passenger appeared. He was a very small man, clad in a huge overcoat that draped about him and looked like a partially collapsed tent. He mounted the watch your steps spryly, dropped a dime into the glass fare box, and sidled down the aisle through the sliding door to the glassed-in middle section. And then he said, E pluribus unum and backwards Neptune. Immediately, the all-night streetcar began moving violently, but in the wrong direction. McCroy, the motorman, finding himself in the wrong end of his car, picked up his driving handle and walked mechanically to the other end of the car and began to operate there. He looked as if he were about to collapse again. But the conductor, who was non-collapsible, had begun to crank his fare box and was paying no attention to directions. In a minute or two, out came no dime, but instead a smooth, white seashell.
This will never do,
he said to himself, as he walked down the aisle and confronted the passenger.
Your fare, sir, is a shell.
Huh, said the passenger. That insidious machine would ruin any decent magic. Let us see if my fare is not fair. In God we trust, Neptune. The conductor opened his hand again and now found a dime there. He blinked.
Oh,
he said, as he blinked again.
I'm sorry, sir. I thought it was a shell.
By this time, the streetcar was rushing so fast through the moonlight that the echoes of McCroy's bell were left far behind and could be heard whining in the distance. The buildings began to diminish in size and became farther and farther apart. McCroy realized that they were nearing the far end of the line, nearing the palisades that dropped off into the rolling sea. So he tried to slow down. But the more he tried, the faster the little car went. By this time, the conductor realized what was happening. He ran up to McCroy and shouted in an angry voice,
You're going too fast. Slow down.
But McCroy just shrugged his shoulders and threw up his hands. He could do nothing.
I'll report you to the superintendent for speeding,
the conductor shouted. But McCroy said nothing, just pointed at the passenger. So the conductor confronted the passenger again.
Do you have anything to do with this?
He asked suspiciously. Everything, the passenger replied.
Well, stop it at once,
the conductor shouted, and he began to shake the passenger's shoulders. This made the passenger furious, and as he shook himself loose, he said, Gadzooks, Oddsbodkins, fish hooks, faster, Neptune, faster. And the all-night streetcar began to go so fast that the landscape outside was just a white blur of moonlight. There was a roar of wind, mingled with the sound of ocean waves dashing upon a beach. The conductor was truly frightened now.
The end of the line, the cliff, the ocean, we're coming to it. Stop! The end of the line!
Olaf! And just then, the trolley plunged over the palisades. Down, down, down it plummeted and into the sea with a terrific splash. Down, down it sank through the pale moonlit water. Deeper and deeper it went into the darker depths. McCroy, who had recovered completely and was thinking quite clearly, had closed the in-between glass doors which kept the ocean out. Now he turned on the inside lights. Down, down sank the streetcar until at last, with a little jolt, it hit the bottom of the sea, and right side up, too. For a while it rolled along the bottom of the sea, but more and more slowly, until finally it stopped in a forest of seaweed. McCroy looked out of the window, and he saw the long orange fronds of the weed coiling gracefully through the dimly moonlit green-blue water, and the little fern-like fronds flowing gently to and fro in the breezy ripples. And he saw chubby goldfish swimming contentedly about, and lazy halibut flapping past. And he wasn't frightened at all. This is beautiful. It is, isn't it? And the passenger smiled at McCroy. You may have noticed that every time I say a certain word, something magical happens. Remember that. I must leave you now. Ocean, Neptune. Then he slipped off his overcoat, and muttering something, he melted out of the window. In a trice, he was splashing gleefully about, and McCroy was amazed to see that he had a tail. Why, he's a merman.
Merman! I don't like this at all,
the conductor shouted, frightened and furious. The conductor began pacing angrily up and down the middle of the streetcar. As he did so, McCroy noticed that suddenly the ocean was filled with hundreds of fish, swimming slowly past and staring in at the angry conductor. There were big polka-dotted fish and chubby little striped fish. There were middle-sized goldfish and teeny-weeny silverfish. But they all had one thing in common. Their eyes seemed to almost pop out of their heads as they watched the conductor. This made him even angrier.
I feel like I'm in a goldfish bowl.
McCroy couldn't help but laugh.
Well, we are in a kind of people bowl.
I don't think this is funny at all. Get me out of here!
In a twinkling, the conductor was outside of the car in the water and floundering fiercely. When the merman blew a series of bubbles, all the hundreds of fish swam round and round the conductor and looked at him with their big pop eyes. Then the fish all swam over to one side, and when the conductor saw what was coming, he looked more frightened than ever, for swiftly approaching on his tummy was an athletic octopus with boxing gloves on each of his 8 arms. The bubbling conductor put his fists up, but in very short order, the octopus had punched the conductor 4 times on the right side of his jaw and 4 times on the left.
Oh,
said McCroy, as he winced 8 times.
I wish I were out of here. They even have prize fighters in Neptunes.
What happened?
Asked the conductor in a very small voice as water spilled out of his ears.
I can't quite explain it, but here we are, high and dry on Main Street again.
Was I asleep? I dreamed.
Dreamed? Look at your pockets. They're full of seaweed. You're dripping. You've just been beaten up by an octopus.
The conductor rubbed his tender jaw with one hand and scratched his head with the other. It was all most mysterious and needed pondering. So he pulled his pipe out of his pocket and began to light up to aid in pondering. But there was a small red herring in the pipe.
Hey,
said McCroy anxiously.
You're asphyxiating him.
Who cares?
Said the conductor, and he threw the little fish away. McCroy caught him and put him in his hat.
Now wring out your coat and empty your pockets. Give him some water.
So the conductor did, and the little red herring in McCroy's hat gulped greatly and gave a weak but thankful flip of his fins. McCroy started the all-night streetcar again, and as the gray morning light began to steal over the city, he trundled the little trolley back to the car barn and tiptoed her in so he wouldn't wake up the superintendent. It was lucky that he did, too, because the wheels were all tangled up with seaweed. McCroy got out and began to run. He ran all the way home, bareheaded, too, for he had the fish in his hat in his hand. Up the 6 flights of stairs in his boarding house he bounded, a flight at a time, and when he reached his little room, he poured the fish into a bowl, added water, salt, and pepper. The herring sneezed.
I'm sorry,
said McCroy.
You should be,
said the herring. McCroy was very, very surprised. He sat down on his bed, still very surprised. He lay down on his bed, quite surprised.
I must have been dreaming,
he thought, as he went to sleep.
There was a little streetcar and it ran along a track. It had a front which was its front and turn around its back. It had a trolley on its roof that went along a line. But best of all, it had 2 bells a-ringing very fine. Clickety-clack, cling-clang, clickety-clack, cling-clang, as it raced along its track to the end of the line and back. Clickety-clack, cling-clang, clickety-clack, cling-clang. One night this little streetcar ran past the end of the line and splashed into the ocean, which it thought was very fine. It rolled along the bottom, its fishes and some shells, and as it did, it clanged away on underwater bells. Clubbity-club, clig, clug, clubbity-club, clig, club. In seaweed it soon stopped, all the fish's eyes just popped. Clubbity-club, clig, club, clubbity-club, clig, clug. It took a little magic on land to get it back, but moonlight is quite magic, so it's back upon its track. And now when it is moonlight, if you listen very still, you'll hear its bells both ringing in the distance, yes you will. Clickety-clack, cling-clang, clickety-clack, cling-clang, racing along its track to the end of the line and back. Clickety-clack, cling-clang, clickety-clack, cling-clang.